Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm going to invite our panelists. We have 6 wonderful panelists that are going to join me with this amazing topic. So if I can allow Engineer Faisal, Ivo, Harry, Enrique, and Katerina to please join me on stage for this wonderful discussion. So firstly, to just give a little bit of an introduction of myself and set the context for today, and then I will ask our fellow panelists to also introduce themselves and give them a couple of minutes to talk about the topic as well. So for me, I've started my career within the UK civil service as a public civil servant, had the opportunity to work under 3 different prime ministers, starting with Margaret Thatcher, John Major, and then Tony Blair. Very interesting, diverse personalities, so that gave me a huge amount of interest in the subject of government, but also governance. I am passionate personally about wanting to make a difference in people's lives, so this topic in particular is really interesting for me because if we are not in our homes, we are in our offices. If we are not in our offices, we are in a mall or we are somewhere which is a built environment, especially in this region. So the topic becomes quite important. I was looking around some of the facts and figures, and I thought this is quite important as a subject because we're going to be talking about innovation in the real estate industry as a whole, which, if you don't know already, it contributes something like 42% of the CO2 emissions in the world. So this innovation is going to be a catalyst for change. We have COP28 happening at the same time as we know, so we cannot not put this particular topic on the agenda. What I'm going to do now is ask my fellow panelists to quickly introduce themselves. If you can take no more than 2 minutes, if I may ask, to introduce yourself personally, but also the organization you work for. And please share with us something that you're really passionate about in your life. So if I can maybe start with yourself, Engineer Faisal.
Yes. Good morning.
Yeah.
Yes. Good morning to all of you. Thank you very much, Mohammed, for this. First, I would like to welcome all of you here in Saudi Arabia. I think it's a pleasure to meet you all, and I hope you will enjoy being here in Riyadh. And inshallah, it will be a very successful event during those days. I'm Faisal Al Nasser. My background was in IT, so I'm a computer engineer, but I worked all my life in banking. So strange mix here around that. And lately, I'm in the real estate industry, where I am the CEO of Al Andalus Property Company. Al Andalus Property Company is a company where we focus mainly in the commercial corporate properties, where we focus mainly in all properties that's focusing on changing the life of, or I would say having experience for customers who's visiting us, between even in the entertainment, in the shopping, and in the offices building. I believe that, as you mentioned, that today the real estate is embedded in everything in our life. So today, everything we have is built on the real estate overall, whatever type of industry. So I wish you all the best to you and all of my.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to be a part of this panel. So all the best to all of us, and I hope we can add value to the people who's watching us.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Enrique Peiniger. I'm originally from Germany. I'm now American citizen. I'm a lighting designer, and I studied. I got a degree in engineering and in social sciences. Actually, what I'm really passionate about is the future. Everything, how we can shape the environment, everything, what future, the tools we have. That's really the cool thing, because everything is already built, but how can we reinvent the future? That's always a mission. I look always for designers and for clients to work with who really want to do something, how to make something the next step. That's something which makes really, this gets me up in the morning, and I get up in the 3 o'clock in the night. That's really something fascinating. Our office is really focused on daylighting, artificial lighting, and actually how to change mood in space. When you see this here, it's all about experiences and how to set moods and emotions to spaces. That's what we love, and how can we do that? Thank you.
Salam alaikum. In terms of my intro, my name is Ivo van Brooklyn, a managing partner at the PropTech Connection, and I lead our global origination and network and partnership function. We are a global advisory firm that advises real estate and construction companies with implementing their digital strategy. And our specialty as a global advisory business is helping these technology buyers benchmark and access the leading technologies globally. As a firm, we use our global position and market intelligence to give insights into macro trends and also support strategies for technology adoption as well as deployment. Further to this, we then provide research on the leading technologies and companies, and we always do this through the specific lens of our clients. We are sector and team agnostic and independent. With offices across the globe, our unique viewpoint and visibility over 19,000 PropTech startup companies, we help accelerate and provide surety to our clients' objectives. I, on behalf of the PropTech Connection, am extremely excited about making Saudi Arabia the leader in real estate technology. Right now, there is not a market-leading company, nation, or marketplace, and we firmly believe that given the scale of all the Giga projects, Saudi Arabia should become the leader in real estate technology.
Thank you. Katerina, please.
My name is Katerina Pilipchuk, and I'm Vice President of FIAPSI Ukraine, Ukrainian chapter of FIAPSI International. And I am a strategic business advisor to Modulina Straw Panels. It's a Lithuanian company, the manufacturer of the prefabricated straw panels for building, the bio-based building material of the future. And this company is involved in the initiative of the Rebuilding Ukrainian Cities Green, which is now launched in Ukraine. And what we are going to do, we are going to scale up the production of the straw panels as a great tool for decarbonization of the country, which is suffering now from the war, but at the same time it is a great opportunity to make the shift of the paradigm and start to build and rebuild using the natural materials and providing people with the best atmosphere and living conditions.
Thank you. Harry, please, if you can do the same.
Hello. Hi, my name is Harry Goodson-Wicks. I head up the Savills for this part of the region. Thank you very much for inviting us here. It's a fantastic event. To talk a little bit about Savills. Savills is one of the world's largest real estate consultancy firms. And we work across about 70 different countries, 40,000 people, and we offer all property services across the whole development life cycle. I have a particular passion for the built environment, no surprise there, and I also have a real personal interest in health and wellness and in technology and how these two big elements of our world are intersecting with the property and built environment. And we look forward to discussing more about that as we move forward.
Thank you. So on this panel, we are going to try and explore what does actually innovation mean for the real estate industry. When we look at the value chain of the real estate industry, from the development, the planning, the development, the actual construction, the marketing, the sales, and then obviously maintenance and operating of real estate assets that we build. And as we talked about earlier, our built environment is really contributing the most to the CO2 emissions in the world. So there's a huge opportunity for innovation across this whole value chain. And the theme for this overall conference being about resilience and growth, it is very important that we explore with you guys the different aspects of this panel, of this value chain. So if I can maybe start with Katrina, you, because I know that something that is very at your heart and you're passionate about is how to reduce the CO2 emissions through using diverse and new techniques for making, constructing buildings, etc. So can you give us a bit of your perspective on what is happening in this space and how in that part of the value chain we can make a significant difference?
Thank you very much. That I want to start from one thing which is very important, I think, just for the overall understanding what is going on this planet. People, the humanity, always trying to find the solution for solving their problems. And these solutions become the problems in the future, which we again try to solve. And every next solution which we are putting on the table creates the new problems. And actually, this is the circle which we are experiencing. And how to go out of that circle, how to find the real solution which will not cause the next problem. And actually, the answer is very simple. We have to go back to the point where we started and look what was there. And actually, there was the nature. There was the nature. There was the trees, the plants, the rivers, our environment where we are living, and people used that environment for their living. Actually, the answer is turning back to nature. When we are looking how our people lived many years ago and how they created their living spaces, they used the natural materials for their living. And these natural materials were just chosen because they had no other choices. Actually, if we are taking that experience today with our smart choices, which we can do having a lot of different technologies around, then we can think about how we can conservate the CO2. Because if we're talking about the material like a straw material, which I'm now going to talk about, straw is the growing plant. And of course, it has the CO2 inside when it's going to be burned, or it will be going to atoms in the future. So this will be CO2 there. But if we will preserve it in walls, and it will stay for a long time, as for example, yesterday we attended the Heritage State Diriyah, and they told us that these buildings are built from bricks, stones, straw, and clay. So these four materials, and they're standing for 300 or more years there, and they built it with the feeling that it will keep them in a good environment for that.
Extremely interesting, and I want to bring that now to the context of Saudi Arabia. From your perspective, and you're an important company playing in different parts of the value chain, which part of the value chain do you see most impacted through innovation of all of these things that are happening in Saudi Arabia?
Yes, sorry. In Saudi Arabia, you can see that today real estate is playing a major role overall, and all was the Vision 2030's direction in all of those segments. But I will say mainly today you can see in the development area of, or the development side of this real estate industry, you can see how it's really impacting on overall the lives of the citizen and the residents of people in Saudi Arabia. As you can see, the change that's what's happened across the culture of the city and overall the people living in Saudi Arabia, you can see how the real estate are adapting quickly. So the developers are playing the major, I would say, role on that. When you see, as example, what's happened on the housing, overall story of housing, it's it's a story that we are all proud of. How become the real estate industry in Saudi Arabia developed what's based on the demand. So you see how they can cover all that big demand that we have and develop that. People were not expecting this success. That's what's happening in the housing. Another example on COVID-19, that's changed a lot of people's way of life and their lifestyle. And you can see real estate developers mainly, which starting mainly the stage by the stage of developers, how they become very resilient and they change I would say the way how they do their business on the real estate. And it was quick adapting the changes overall. So I will answering the question will be mainly in the developing stage will be the best, the highest. I would say
Which makes sense as well, because that's where you're going to make choices, decisions on
Correct.
whether you're going to use sustainable materials, whether you're going to use sustainable techniques, process, etc., which will go filter down in the
which
other
will
parts
have a
of
bigger impact across
all the value chain.
all the value chain.
Enrique, if I can bring you into this, from your perspective, especially when we look at these mega projects that are happening, what do you see in terms of the role that is going to be played across the value chain of innovation?
Well, the big trigger is of course AI. It will influence everyone, and we can even foresee the changes which are coming. We talked about the last few days. Tony Blair mentioned it. Actually, I think there will be production method will be improved. But I come from a design perspective. I'm a designer. We work with architects like Morphosis, Hadid, Foster, and these architects. And actually, the design process has to be more smart in a way that it can pre-anticipate the construction process, that delivery can be faster done. The AI might actually fuse the design and the execution process in unique ways we have not seen so far. So this is something what we have to make very sure. And also, AI will already take into account the circular economy, how something is being built. I expect from AI that actually products will be built in a modular fashion, that parts can be built, for example, in Saudi Arabia, only some modules come from outside from the country. So we can also stimulate the local economy in the long term, not only shipping product into the market, they should be fabricated here. AI will, I think, open up a lot of thinking in different perspectives, which don't make the project complex, which should actually at the end simplify the project and process, and also actually build the local economy where a project takes place. That's something unique I look forward to. Innovation. It's all innovation with AI.
Very interesting, and I want to, Harry, if you don't mind building on that, because when we look at these kind of mega trends that are happening out there, what do you see across the value chain? Which element and which mega trend, in your opinion, is going to make the biggest impact as we go forward?
Sorry. Hello? Sorry. I think, there's a number of really big mega trends. I think I'd probably select three main mega trends at the moment that we're seeing that are going to affect the real estate market. The first of which is clearly climate. Climate is very real. We need to respond to it. I think probably everybody knows real estate is the largest asset in the world. I mean, equities and bonds combined together do not make up the value locked in real estate. It's also the biggest offender when it comes to climate change, carbon emissions. And so, and that's not only during the construction process, but the ongoing running of buildings. So I think, as you said at the beginning, Mohammed, 40% of the CO2 in the world comes from the real estate market, as well as 60% of the waste. So that's one of the mega trends. The other one is health, clearly on the back of the pandemic. We have to live in buildings, work in buildings that are healthy. To get people back from, working from home, back into the office, we need to create buildings that are healthy. And then obviously the last one is the The third one is the fourth industrial revolution, and how do we deal with that? And you were asking me something where I see that one of the biggest disruption areas is around the transaction of real estate. You know, it's still incredibly an archaic way of doing things. You know, it hasn't changed for years. Why does it take 3 months to transact a property? You know, it's just, and listening to the CEO of RER yesterday, you know, that's something they're going to try and address. You know, we should get to the position where we've got digital passports, you know, and for houses, for homes. And so you can transact in one afternoon, you know, potentially on a blockchain. So it's immutable. And so, you know, and title is on the blockchain, it's secure. You know, so I think that whole transactional fintech part of the value chain is going to be disrupted, and I really welcome that going forward.
Great. And I think particularly what you were saying at the end, in how the difference between, if you think about the value chain of how, for example, me as a consumer, I get a property into my hand, and you as a developer put it into my hand. There are so many different players in between. That is also collapsing, or technology is allowing that to collapse. Even the funding of real estate, even the selling and buying of real estate, all is up for disruption. So Ivo, I'm going to bring you in here because thank you for also sharing your report that you've done, the Foundations of Growth, PropTech in Saudi Arabia. Amazing, lots of insight, lots of interesting points over there, and especially very poignant for this market because you have looked at it from the global standpoint of view and then zoomed into Saudi Arabia. So from your perspective, where do you see the biggest impact happening or innovation happening and disruption happening across the value chain and the future of PropTech?
Well, thank you so much for the question. I think it's really important to start first with the question, what does PropTech actually mean? And for us at the PropTech Connection, that's a question that we get asked quite a bit. And it's the answer is actually simple, but also rather complex. It's a catch-all term for technology that impacts space and how we live, consume as well. And the complex answer is the fact that it's constantly changing, reflective of the nature of real estate. What you obviously see, and what I think is really important to emphasize as well, is that this concept of PropTech is very much based on the regional problems that occur in different parts of the world. So the challenges you have from a technology perspective in, for example, the US, where I live, or Europe, Saudi Arabia, or Australia, are completely different. So as an example, the demarcation of traditional real estate sectors has been eroded, especially after COVID, which has accelerated this, with examples as homes being used as offices, the hotelization of office through offerings in amenity-centric assets, and also the early steps into the digital world. So what this means is that the number of technologies applicable to real estate has significantly increased. So one of the things that we're seeing is that there is now 19,000 different solutions that are servicing this market with tech aggregations like construction tech, fintech, mobility, climate tech, smart buildings. Generative AI is very much front and center of a lot of conversations right now, and numerous other terms. Thus, as a consequence, this concept of PropTech is an ever-changing and evolving term. What I will also say then is what we're seeing here in Saudi Arabia. We've been here as a firm multiple times. We have visited over the last days and also in previous steps 7 or 8 of the Giga projects. And what we noticed is when we meet often C-suite is that we hear a lot of the same problems at all these projects. You see there is a huge demand from the Giga projects to use technology, and there is little supply locally in the market. It's still a very nascent market, and a lot of companies are looking for the same solutions.
Interesting, and towards the end, I will ask you also to just maybe talk about some of the key figures that we've got from a specific perspective. But I'm going to bring it back to you, Engineer Faisal. In this time of intense transformation that is happening within Saudi Arabia. And we were talking about this earlier, how our lives are changing, have changed and are changing, and will change in the future. And especially we were talking about with the success of Saudi Arabia winning the Expo, World Expo, and we have also, which is in 2030, and we have the World Cup also happening in 2034. These two events mean that we are going to create a lot of new real estate assets within Saudi Arabia. So my question to you is, how resilient is the real estate industry in Saudi Arabia to be able to embrace these changes that are happening in the people's lifestyle, culture, but also the impact this is going to create on their lives?
Thanks for question. Yes. Thanks for question. I think this is mainly why we are here, and to try to look and work all jointly on those. Clear that we are very happy on the winning of Saudi Arabia on Expo 2030 and World Cup 2034. And understanding Saudi Arabia, especially with the latest vision and the new leadership of Saudi Arabia 2030, you can see that they never accept something as not the top and impressing people, where everyone will be impressed what we are doing. So it's clear that the ambition of the government and the people in Saudi Arabia is to do something that's embracing world. And here where real estate need to play a very important element, as we mentioned, that real estate is embedded in all things of the sectors of life. I believe that real estate will be ready and resilient for this, and clear that this will take whatever required to be done to a higher scale of what's expected. In this point especially, we can see that today real estate was having a successful stories to say before in Saudi Arabia, and I think here it will be another successful story. Mainly, you see that today that there was a previous, events that's happening even for Expo or World Cup or whatever type of those, and always real estate was doing a major element. So we'll keep building on the other nations' story. But very important here, we need to look to subject clearly that today it's important that we look on what's really real estate can invent the wheel, starting new things and having new initiatives on that, mainly starting from news. So whatever initiatives that the government looking and the country is looking to do, it will start from a real estate in the beginning.
Absolutely.
I think the real estate is resilient for that. It's ready for that. And expectations become very, very high. And we are setting high standards in the country now. And we believe that real estate is ready. And I will give you one example of that, the giga project that's happening in Saudi Arabia. You can see example of Neom, Dir'iyah, Giddiya, Sport Boulevard. All of those are beyond the people expectation, and it's really taking the people imagination to higher scale. So by thinking that's why it started even before the winning of those big events. So my expectation that's no, the real estate is ready, is resilient for that, and will be there is, I would say, real estate will have a driving role in the new direction that when winning those.
The transformation of Saudi Arabia. Absolutely,
yes.
absolutely. Katrina, I'm going to come to you for, if you allow me to talk from a Ukraine perspective, because there is a lot of city development, from a green, especially city development, and similar to what's happening obviously in Saudi Arabia, there's a lot of construction that needs to happen. Can you put some light on the kind of what is the global significance of this rebuilding of Ukrainian cities?
First of all, I would like to say that we have today a lot of different initiatives on rebuilding cities, and actually the rebuilding cities green is the focus on green technologies and bio-based materials. And actually, I would like to say more about the straw materials, because it's the circular economy principle based in the European Green Deal, which was announced by Ursula von der Leyen in 2019 for the European states to become climate neutral until 2050, and Europe should be like the first continent to be there. And actually, Ukraine is a part of Europe and is leading to European Union now, and we want to be in line with the European legislation. And of course, we want to involve as much as possible of the companies which are willing to build with green technologies and to have the opportunity, like a platform for innovations in ConTech, because PropTech it's including ConTech as well. So like construction technologies, and straw as a material which Ukraine has as a biggest basket of wheat for the world. So we have the straw as much as the grain. So this material, we have enough of that in our country, and actually the straw panel is the timber frame with the straw insulation and clay plaster, which is used inside of the premise, which helps to make the health environment for people to live inside, and to making it prefabricated and make it on site of the manufacturing plant allows you to build it very fast. So this is the mobile and fast technology, which helps to assemble it on place without having big construction sites and a lot of CO2 produced during the construction process. So at the end of the day, when you preserve the CO2 in the walls, and if you want to demolish this building, at the process of demolishing, you also have the natural material which you can utilize for putting on the fields or wherever. So this helps you to be in this cycle. And actually, the main thing in here is the price for that material. If you have the big scale of need to do it in big scales, then you can reduce the price for this very valuable and healthy material. It will not be for only people who can pay for that, but also for those who, it can be the material for the affordable and social housing. And also the very important thing that the municipalities which make decisions, as Tony Blair said yesterday, the governments has to change their minds to shift their minds and think not only about the price which they put on the table and like the fast things which they can do, but also the resilience of those projects which they will provide to people, like a fast solution.
Yeah. And Harry, if I come to you on this, just to sort of kind of build on that, particularly from the future of office space, what do you see happening over there?
Essentially, we're seeing some assets where the value is going up and some assets where the values are going down. And I know that sounds pretty basic, but the reason for that is there are offices that are rising to the challenge, we're essentially seeing a bifurcation in the market. So offices that are energy efficient, healthy, well connected, and these properties are valued at very low yields. Institutions want to buy them. The values are very high. And then on the other side of that, you're seeing what we're calling stranded assets, which are essentially offices, that aren't energy efficient, aren't well connected, aren't healthy. And there's a lot of offices that are in that situation. So if you look at the London market, let's say is 300 million square meters of office space, probably about 50% of that is going to have to be repurposed to an extent or refurbished to bring it back into economic use. So it's a massive problem, and that problem is landing squarely on the shoulders of the owners, property owners. And then we're also just seeing a change in the office market, whereas that whole traditional model where it was landlord, tenant, rent is being disrupted, and you're having owners, operators like WeWork, and customers. And that's something that needed to happen because, you know, the office industry has been quite far behind in terms of the rest of the industry, in terms of moving forward and treating occupants like they are customers. And I think it's got quite a lot to learn from the retail sector. The retail sector post-COVID had to get people back into the shops again. And the way they could do that was experiential activities, etc., bring them back in. That's exactly what the offices now need to do. They need to think about experiential, amenity. It means that the owners of the building are not going to be collecting rents in the same way previously. They aren't going to be clean rents, they're going to be dirty, as in they're going to be having to provide some services for that rent. So it's going to become a little bit more burden on the landlords, but it'll be interesting to see how that evolves.
So interesting times, I think innovation in the business models of how basically those assets are going to be leveraged and used, and particularly, you know, having unique different use cases for those spaces that exist, because you can't just demolish them, right? So it's going to be interesting to see what flows out. Enrique, if I can come to you on something that fascinated me, which was around the lighting, so the inside of our living, you know, so we're living indoors and even here, especially the neon line, something around the biophilic lighting design that will play a role in the city. What does that mean? And, you know, give us some insights on that.
Yeah, let me explain it briefly. We are very glad that we have been working alongside with Morphosis on the NEOM, on the Hidden Marina, and actually Dennis Hickett already said yesterday, he said something nice. In harmony with nature, we're building a new city, but we don't want to be in a shopping mall or something like this. Biophilic means that we bring the nature into the building and that the body clock has normal rhythm. We don't have to look to the clock now, we're 2 hours out in here, what's the weather outside? The sun is changing throughout the day. And actually biophilic means that you have a natural feeling. You don't feel enclosed in a box, in a bunker. And actually lighting design is a unique element what we have here. We have daylighting, there's abundance of daylighting in this area, but actually we have to shape it correctly. And it's for free, the daylighting. That's a total sustainable element. It's very it can be done very creative. We, for example, did the Kapsak Aramco headquarters here in Riyadh with Zaadid Architect, and it was a creative way to use daylighting, and it ages very well. We can use this experience actually on the NEOM line. Biophilic means actually everything is tailored to the human being. A good metaphor for biophilic is actually how the iPhone is working. Actually, it's very natural. Biophilic should feel natural to the body. Actually, the iPhone is beautiful. Everyone loves it because it's so easy. Lighting should be the same. When I describe lighting, I'd say always lighting design and daylighting and artificial lighting. It's like film music. When it's done well, a good film, you remember the plot. But the music gives you the mood to the space. And biophilic is that. You get the mood. And lighting design is doing that part, actually. This is the aesthetic part, but we have a huge technology part. And that's where the other players come in. We also have to work with them because we are fusing something with the functional lighting, and we have actually the event lighting. The event lighting where, for example, here's an event. That is something fusing. The lighting is fusing more and more. At NEOM, biophilic means you have in the morning a plaza. You meet, like now we have a meeting there, in the afternoon families come, they play, and in the evening it will be actually maybe an event plaza for convention or something. Biophilic means it natural changes throughout the day without staging a space. So that's something really we want to take care of in a biophilic way. Everything feels very natural. The idea of biophilic, if I give it a metaphor, it's we should look for the heart and soul of a building, that it's there. It's the finishes don't make it. Actually, the finishes are part of it, but it's all a composition, and that's something really important. What we are doing on the NEOM project to really infuse the whole building with a sense of being. One example.
Fascinating, really fascinating. If I can bring Ivo, if you allow me to, in the mix. I'm curious about the adoption of technology in the real estate industry. How do you see it? Do you see it's in the same way it's been adopted by other sectors which are really advancing, especially telecommunication? We see a lot more adoption. So, Ivo, in your opinion, what is the state within the real estate industry for adoption of technology?
Yeah, I think, thank you for the question. I think it's a really good question. The thing we always at the PropTech Connection like to highlight is that both real estate and construction, after fishing and hunting, are the least digitized industries. So there is a lot of room for growth. Obviously pointing out that 40% of emissions are generated in building operations, there is a huge opportunity. What we see from a technology perspective, and I think Harry mentioned it, there is completely different technology needs in different markets. In London, you need to repurpose a lot of those office assets into residential or other use cases. But for example, here in Saudi Arabia, most of the buildings in 2050 have not even been built. So sourcing technology is actually very difficult for a number of reasons. So one, every use case for every client is different. So it's really important to ask the right questions early on the project, understanding what a client needs. That's one. Second, there's very poor ways of accessing this global ecosystem. One of the things that we are seeing at the PropTech Connection is that the PropTech ecosystem is starting to mature. So, for example, in the USA where I live, you have 3,500 startups, right? Some are very big, some are very small. But a lot of companies in Europe, the US, but also in Eastern Asia have already been through this technology adoption process, many of which have paid significant amount of capital with very mixed results. So we think it's very important to have somebody advise and support clients understanding what is out in the market, what are lessons learned, how can you implement this technology as well. And second to that, there is also different parts of an organization that you need to get in this on the same page to assure that you have a good outcome.
Thank you for that. And as I know from a time perspective, we're getting close to wrapping up. I want to give each one of you an opportunity to maybe share some last remarks, something that you think, one thing that you would like every one of us to be mindful of and we should keep in our mind and in this area of real estate innovation. Harry, if I can start with you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think one of the big things we need to look at is Gen Z. You know, they are the biggest demographic in the world now. So they are aged between 11 and 25. And I know in Saudi Arabia here, I can't remember the exact stat, but I think 58% of the population are below the age of 30. So we really need to listen to them. What are they prioritizing? They're prioritizing health. They're prioritizing wellness. They're incredibly environmentally conscious, and they're very, very tech savvy. And we need to make sure from our perspective, from real estate perspective, that we're listening to them and we're providing what they want in terms of real estate going forward.
Thank you for that. Katrina?
I don't want to look hilarious, but I would say that we need to teach our kids from the very young age that the tale about three pigs is wrong, because this is not true, that you need the brick house and it's like the best one, and the straw house can be the good one. And actually it's like a metaphor that we need to change the minds of our kids first, because it's not so easy to change the minds of adults. And as well, of course, we need the regulation which should be set up in each country to motivate people and companies to use the carbon natural materials in building processes, and it can actually help us to survive at this planet.
Thank you for that. Ivo?
I think if we look from a Saudi Arabian perspective, I think there's an incredible opportunity locally to capitalize on the leading position in terms of real estate, over $1 trillion of assets in the pipeline, and I really believe that Saudi Arabia has an opportunity to become the real estate technology leader globally.
Thank you for that, Ivo. Enrico?
My vision would be actually how to support to build a global culture and how to keep the identities of each culture that is still existing and not making everything the same.
Thank you. And Engineer Faisal.
Thank you. Thank you. I believe, as we said, real estate is embedded in everything in our life. So whatever changes are going to happen in all the culture, and every changes happen in the people's lives, real estate will be a big major of it. So, and what we see before, and I'm sure we'll see it in future, that's real estate is utilizing all enhancement on technology and benefits that's benefiting from all ways of, I would say, new thinking. So I'm sure that real estate will continue to be a very important part of this story, especially in Saudi Arabia, as we see, what we can see now, what we will start seeing the Vision 2030 initiatives to become in the our real lives, and it's becoming to see truth. And always we are seeing the real estate is embedded with everything on that. So I'm very sure that will continue. We will continue seeing real estate embedded in all of those stories, success stories, and will continue, inshallah, in future, in all the new, I would say, target dates we have, inshallah.
Thank you. I'm sure you guys would express the same feeling that we could have had this conversation going for the next 2 or 3 hours, because the insights that each one of the panelists has shared with us is really, really interesting. And we are living at a very interesting and important time in the history of mankind. For Saudi Arabia in particular, it's an amazing place to be at this moment. I've been coming here for the last 20 plus years, and I really enjoy every time I land over here. And we were talking about earlier how the life has changed, how the first impression of landing to Saudi Arabia allows you to just leave the airport in a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes, and which we now expect from even some countries around the world where it's a lot longer. So there's a huge change happening. If I was to conclude some of the key things that for me came out from this session, number one, the innovation across the whole value chain of real estate will make a difference in our lives. It will make our life better at home. It will make our life better in our offices, in any built-up environment where we are living. Number two, there's a huge role to be played by innovation across the whole value chain to really make an impact in bringing down the CO2 emissions. Today, as we talked about earlier, 42% of all CO2 emissions are from built environment. So there's a huge opportunity for us to make an impact. And particularly for Saudi Arabia, because we are in this build phase, and over the next 10 to 15 years, we are probably going to see 60 to 70% of the buildings that are constructed will be from this period between now and the next 10 or 15 years. So there's a huge opportunity to embed innovation and thinking around sustainability from the beginning. And the final thing is that there's an opportunity to use innovation to drive efficiencies across the whole value chain and really take out wastage, because there's a lot of wastage around the processes, the materials we're using, so there's huge potential for that. There are, if I remember correctly, I think there's a number of mega trends, or from a kind of technology perspective, AI, machine learning, augmented reality, VR, IoT, blockchain, data analytics, big data analytics, and of course, prop tech is at the heart of all of this, what is happening. So, amazing discussion. Thank you very much for that. I'm sure you have also learned a lot from this discussion. I'm left to thank the organizers for giving us this opportunity, and to our panelists for giving us their time and their valuable insights. And thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.